Let's get on to it. Let's get on to the real episode 218. We're going to finally get into the rundown, all this stuff breaking right before the show happens. I wanted to touch on a lot of it. We're going to kick things off with Marvel's Avengers. This game has had a bumpy development cycle, to say the least. They debuted it at E3 in full, really, and the response to it was not good. At E3 2019, they had their own booth and everything, and everyone was just kind of meh when they kind of were talking about the game, us included. I think we saw stuff that we liked, but we also saw just as much stuff that concerned us.
Yeah, although it was a weird phenomenon where, like, when the gameplay got leaked and then when it finally got shown at Comic-Con, like, the public in general, like, kind of reacted to it like, nah, it's all right. Like the press had a really negative response to it at E3, and then the public, maybe because they were over-prepared by the press reaction, were kind of like, oh, it's fine kind of thing. But I think, now that they've shown it again a year, this is obviously the E3 presentation had there been an E3. I'm not super psyched with their progress. Let's just put it that way.
Yep. So one thing that they did divulge is the story for the game, and I'll just give you a quick synopsis right now. So it's Avengers Day in San Francisco. The Golden Gate Bridge is attacked. Some of the Avengers go to protect the bridge. Some of the other Avengers go to find out the source of the issue. Their hell carrier is destroyed, and basically the people who orchestrated the attack set it up so that it looks like it was the Avengers who did it. And so they kind of go into hiding for, I think it's like 3 years. And then Miss Marvel decides it's time to get the band back together and clear our name. And what motivates her to do that is that two characters called AIM and MODOK have basically, there are some parallels to this in real life that are going on right now.
AIM is an organization. AIM is
an organization, and then
Advanced Idea Mechanics.
Yeah, and then MODOK, is he the leader of AIM?
Sometimes, but he's or at least he's sort of like one of the major head honchos. He is. You may know him as the giant head in a cyborg suit. He's one of the most ridiculous Marvel villains around. Like early on, a bunch of like running gags from fans about like it was the least likely villain we'll see in the Marvel movies, and like MODOK was one of the suggestions. And so far, that has been correct. Like they have not attempted to do.
But there he is.
Yeah, I mean they did put Arnim Zola in rather effectively, so anything can happen. But MODOK is probably best suited to video games. Yeah. You also know him from the Marvel vs. Capcom games. He's in those.
So basically what he does is he creates the problem and then he presents himself as the person who can fix the problem.
Yeah, it was known as a false flag.
It operation. Is, yeah. And so, again,
maybe something familiar with those.
Yeah, you
may
be
internet.
Familiar with those. They've been pretty prevalent over the last few years. So anyway, they strike out, they reband, they strike out to clear their name. And that's the plot of Marvel's Avengers. Now, Matt, one thing I realized when I learned about
Captain America supposedly dies.
Isn't that Civil War? Isn't that the plot from Civil War?
What?
That doesn't Captain America get framed and then like the whole movie's about like clearing his name?
Not really. He gets there is a false flag attack, but they frame Bucky, the Winter Soldier, and then Captain America goes kind of rogue because he doesn't think Bucky did it. And he's right. But it's kind of that argument over. And it's more of a conflict between him and Iron Man because they believe different things about how they should be monitored.
Right.
Which I'm sure comes up. Like, because when the helicarrier blows up, it's like supposed to be demonstrating some experimental new power source using Terrigen crystals.
Yeah, the Avengers had some experimental source, and the bad guys are trying to steal it.
Yeah, and Terrigen, and that's what blows up and kills, quote unquote, kills Captain America because clearly he's going to come back because he's a playable character. Yeah. And the other thing about the Terrigen, so the Terrigen stuff is tied in with the Inhumans. Terrigen mist is what gives Inhumans their powers, and can also affect, if you have the Inhuman genetic marker somewhere in you, if you get exposed to Terrigen mist, it can cause you to have powers. So I would imagine if the fact that they're using Terrigen crystals in this is going to somehow lead to something like that.
Well, they said in the story that specifically when it explodes, San Francisco is surrounded by many Inhumans, and so the leader oh God, I forgot his name already. The villain. What's the villain's name?
MODOK.
MODOK is trying to say that he's going to cure the Inhumans by getting rid of the plague, because he's considered it as a pandemic. And so he says, I'm going to solve the issue, but he's actually experimenting on them instead.
Yeah, so I'll admit, until I saw this in the rundown this morning, I forgot this presentation
that it happened.
Like, it had so little impact on me that like I really did forget. And then I like looked. When I saw it, I went and I looked at like the SIFTD articles, and I checked the comments, and I realized I'd read the comment section. And not watched the media? No, I watched the presentation when it happened, and then I read the comments on SIFTD, but I completely forgot. About all of it. And then I was reading the comments. I'm like, I've read these before. Wait a minute. Oh, I did see this. Like, it was bizarre. Like, it was part of that might just be pandemic brain, but like part of it was also that like this whole thing is making no impression on me, which is should really disturb some people over at Square Enix, because if you have one mark for this thing, it's me. Like, this is like me not reacting to a Star Wars game.
Yeah. So. Seriously. It's a big ding. I would agree with you. I wasn't impressed with it when we got kind of the first round of footage. But I will say it looks better than the first time I saw it, but it's completely unremarkable. It just looks like any other licensed superhero game. And, you know, when you have a studio like that working on it, I expected a lot more. I'll be perfectly honest with you. And before we started taping the show, Matt, you kind of mentioned something that you think has been the root of the problem with this game.
I think it's just, I think it's the problem with this game is because Crystal Dynamics is an entirely competent developer. We know that. They've made some really good stuff. Obviously, there's turnover with any development team, but as far as I know, most of the important leads are still there. I think what's happened here is a classic example of a licensed game causing you to have to serve too many masters. Like, I think you've got Disney has opinions, and Marvel Entertainment has opinions, and Marvel Studios has opinions, and Crystal Dynamics probably has their own ideas about how things should go. And then you probably got people mediating between the two. And then you've got Square Enix, who clearly sees this as a game as a service opportunity, which is sort of a thing that's kind of going away at this point. Like, I think the game as a service window is sort of closing at this point. Like, that's not the hotness right now, like it was when Destiny 2 launched or whatever. I feel like a lot of that you can lay at the feet of Anthem. Like, I think that spooked a lot of people in the AAA space in terms of that format. But I think you're just dealing with like, it has to be like this. No, we want it like this. It has to be like this. It should be like this. And then on top of that, you've got how many different characters just to start out with. It's like like 6 or 7 Avengers, at least. And then like I think Hawkeye is supposed to be a downloadable character at launch or something. So maybe it's 8. I can't remember exactly. But like every single one of those characters has to play differently. Like, you're basically making 7 games.
Well, they did say that the controls are consistent across all the characters, save for their special powers. But even the actual inputs that you use for that are the same. So
but you're still doing a whole different set of animation stuff. And like that's the thing, though, is like, and obviously we haven't seen how the different characters play extensively enough to know, because they've shown a lot of Thor. We've seen a lot of Thor. That seems to be the thing that the character they're most confident with.
And watching him in action, I don't know why.
Yeah, well, because he's closely modeled off of Kratos and how he fights in the new God of War, and so I think that seems to be the thing they which is funny, because I thought that in the last year's demo, the character that came off the best was Hulk.
Yeah,
and like
I agree with that.
My thing is like we don't see how the other characters play yet, but like my thing is, even if you're using the same control scheme, they have to feel different. They have to interact different. Like, the animation of Thor can't land the same way Captain America's do or the way Black Widows do. They all have to feel different in terms of how they fight, what it feels like when you make contact with the enemy. Like, that's what makes for satisfying.
Parries,
yeah, exactly.
All that stuff. Yeah.
And like, it just doesn't look like that's here. And you can see in the demo they do here with Thor fighting all the robots and stuff, 2 main things jump out at me. And by jump out at me, I mean make me go to sleep, apparently, because I forgot about it until you mentioned it this morning. You can see how rough a lot of it is in terms of sort of the positioning of the character and how he kind of snaps into his combo animations and how like janky that looks, and also just how constantly even the guy or the girl playing it to demo it keeps getting knocked out of stuff and kind of like
look like
getting reset.
combos. It looks
not really, no.
It looks like you do a move, it stops, and then you initiate another move. There's almost this weird kind of reset thing that happens in between attacks.
Well, I think there's like a 3 or 4 hit like basic melee combo, a basic melee attack, and then like when you can probably mix in like one special move at the end of that or in the middle of it. There's a light and a heavy. But in terms of really chaining stuff, I don't see that happening. I don't know if they're saving that for later or if that's just not what Thor does. But with the ability to toss the hammer and like you'd think there'd be juggle potential there, but it doesn't look like they're moving in that direction, which is, I guess, somewhat understandable, but like in terms of like having to do this whole huge thing, but like it feels like that's what they're going to need to do if they want this thing to be replayable. And even watching this demo, by the third like robot in a dome shield thing, I was like, I'm bored already. Like I'm looking at this and I'm like, and just from playing games like Destiny, etc., you're going to be fighting robots in domes for like 10 levels later too. Like, this is clearly a core gameplay concept,
fighting robots in games always sucks.
Yeah. Well, also here's the thing, and this is just my bias as an old school comic fan. AIM is the most boring Marvel villain organization I can think of. Like, I just don't care about any. Well, maybe.
Do you think they had to pick up scraps, meaning that maybe Marvel was like, well, no, we're using that for a film, or we're using that for this, and there
might be some of that, yeah. Or at least, or it might be, knowing how Marvel games play out. AIM might not be the villain the whole campaign. Like it probably, AIM is a good like starter villain. Like he's like AIM is sort of a good like cannon fodder, like no one cares, like just beat the shit out of him. It's like basically you're going to start with AIM or Hydra as your initial sort of break-in period. The problem is that AIM is a really dull thing, and like you want to see some of the big guys, you want to see some other stuff, you want to see some Skrulls or some Kree or something, but like instead we're seeing this or some Doom bots or something, but like instead you're watching even in universe people make the characters make fun of the AIM soldiers because they look so stupid with their beekeeper masks and stuff. And
sounds like they had to pick from scraps or something.
I think they're just picking like the most obvious like starter group, and like they maybe thought MODOK was a fun opener villain, which like
they make him look menacing in the trailer at least.
Yeah, I mean MODOK can be a lot of fun if he's done right. Because he is so ridiculous, and like you can kind of sell the whole AIM thing, because AIM is more or less like a James Bond Spectre kind of thing, except they're scientists. And so you got a lot of tech. The other thing I don't like about AIM is that their core color is bright yellow, so it just looks stupid. I think that's dumb. Like they all look like construction workers or something. It's very weird.
Mitch, what's your take on what was shown this week?
It looks really bad. Like I agree with everything Matt said. To clarify for Matt, the shoulder buttons, there's a hard and a quick attack and a hard attack. And you can intermittently switch between the two, and that's their only combo system. And then you gang up a meter to be able to spend ability point to use one of those special moves, so you can like do it in combination with the combo. But
so the special moves can be used only as you build a combo bar and not as a matter of like time cooldown. Is that right?
To what I listened to, I thought that's what they said.
Okay. That seems like something you could vary between characters depending on how they operate to make them feel a little different. Like Iron Man having cooldowns versus Thor having to hit things to use lightning might be a character differentiation idea, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. It's also dangerous too, because you go against the canon of the character. If you start putting cooldowns on some stuff, and you have all the characters, you have to consider each one. It starts to get a little messy.
Yeah, but I really just didn't like. This reminded me of the old PS2 licensed games that just didn't work well. They just were, his movements, his animation just doesn't work. And I think the biggest issue for me is we just got off Avengers Endgame, and even with Black Widow being delayed so much, I wasn't really planning on going to see Black Widow. I kind of felt like I needed a solid break from Avengers, and this gives me no motivation to go back and feel interested again in getting in touch with that franchise. I think this game came out too late. Like if it came out last year or the year before that.
Or in like 2004.
Yeah. Like I think people's interest would be there. And I think unfortunately, because of the long development cycle this thing has gone through, it's at a severe disadvantage. And I think with Matt's comment about, games as a service is not favorable as much anymore, this proves how long this thing has been in development, because at that time, games as a service started to become something that was in the gaming industry. And now it's been in development so long, it's no longer really that famous to be around on.
Yeah, they definitely missed their window. And like I would say, to kind of counterpoint that, I am ready for more Marvel. I felt kind of done at the end of Endgame, but Spider-Man Far From Home got me like excited again about Phase 4. And so I am missing Black Widow. I would like to see Black Widow. I would not go to a theater to see Black Widow because I'm not crazy, but like I would like to see it. I'm ready for more Marvel. And like I was kind of thinking like, wow, you'd think that with like kind of this Marvel drought, I'd be excited for anything at this point.
Right.
And I'm still in this. So you've got one person who doesn't want any more Marvel who feels that way about this game, and you got one person that really wants more Marvel and also feels that way about this game. That seems like a bad sign to me.
Yeah, I think the final thing is literally this game is just battlefields. Like literally it's just an arena and you throw yourself in there. And I mean,
it's Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Yeah, it's a nicer.
I really struggle to see any differences between this and Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 that launched for Switch like half a year ago.
It's really just the perspective of the camera, the budget, obviously. Even though Mitch is right that like it looks janky in terms of presentation, you can tell obviously this is a very high budget AAA game.
Yeah.
Just in terms of the effects going on and the care taken in the environment design, but like the design of what it looks like, not what you're doing. But the other thing about it is like, at least Marvel Ultimate Alliance, you have a team. Yeah. Like you have 4 characters, you're doing team up moves, you're doing so like I don't see a lot of interaction between the characters in this, which is weird.
Still, we talked about that before.
There's a team up, but like it's not common. And the other thing is like the dialogue doesn't match what's happening on the screen much. Like at one point, Thor asks like, "Who's the girl and what's she doing here?" Referring to Ms. Marvel, who was not part of the team when the team collapsed 3 years ago. And they're like, "Oh, she's okay." I'm like, "What girl? Like, she's not there. I didn't see her. I can't see her anywhere." So what's Thor talking about? Like, it's just stuff like that feels like weird and sloppy and kind of like, I don't know. Like
in that moment, Matt, they didn't show it, but she was on the intercom saying something, and it was Ms. Marvel.
She was talking.
Right.
She's
talking to him. Like, but how does he know she's a little girl?
I totally agree with you. I think like and that's supposed to be a story mission. That's like even worse. The fact that they can't convey a story. It has to just be this battlefield, and then the only way you get story plot points is through your headset. Like that's just not good storytelling.
Like there's like a couple of good things. Like I like that he's wearing the tour guide shirt or whatever, like with his name tag on it. Like that's funny. Like there's clearly there's character things in here that work, and like I think the voice cast is doing their best to sell these personalities. Like, although I will say that I don't like Thor's voice choice. Like I don't
really like most of them, to be honest with you. I mean, I've said this from the beginning that it just doesn't work for me because I'm so used to hearing those characters speak a certain way. But
I'm not. I'm used to hearing them a certain way in the movies, but I'm also used to hearing them as with different voice actors in the cartoons they do, and that's not this cast. It's weird they switch it. And Nolan North is Iron Man, right? Like I didn't know who he was supposed to be early on in the demo. Like I'm like, who is that? I guess it's Iron Man.
Which character has that voice? Yeah,
and like the voices are very indistinct. And like I figure the woman talking is Black Widow because there's only the one woman, right? And she sounds too old to be Ms. Marvel. It's just weird. Like there's a lack of distinction between how they talk, and not even just how they talk. It's not a voice acting thing so much as like. The lines they're reading don't feel like they were written for the characters. They're just there to get information out.
Yeah.
Which
I'm
is
sure there will be tons of cinematics.
Right. Yeah. But it's just like you're early in the game. There's clearly an early story mission after what we saw was probably the tutorial level from last E3. And this is probably the first thing you really play after you get the cutscenes about what happened after the time jump. And it just feels like this thing should be putting a better foot forward to pull you into the game and like make you invested. And I don't see it. I just don't see it.
Yeah. So maybe the bigger question is the response to this round of footage hasn't been great either. We know for a fact that the people that work there are very in tune with what's going on the interwebs around games. Do you think there's a chance that this might get delayed out of the year?
I mean, maybe. I think you're still kind of up against the wall that Mitch mentioned, that like this game should have been out 3 years ago.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I still think there's going to be a lot of interest. Not as much, but I still think there's going to be a lot.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not going to be zero, but like if this thing had been able to release the month after Endgame came out a year ago, like that would have been a completely different ball game. Like, and not even just in the sense that I think it would have been a better game, not necessarily, but I do think you would have had a ton of impulse buys from people who wanted to keep that Avengers high going. Yeah. And now you're going to hit a point where like, the other thing is like, I don't think you want to delay it too far, because I think if you put it out this September, you're going to benefit from the quarantine bump. Because people got nothing else to do. And if you push it too far next year, I don't think you can push it out of the fiscal. So it'd have to be by the end of March.
Right.
Is that going to buy you much time? You'd have to rip this thing apart and put it back together, basically.
They might be able to fix some of the stuff we're kind of nitpicking, though, with like foot placement and some of the animation stuff that's a little hitchy. Like that type of stuff they could fix up in that amount of time.
Yeah, polish matters on that. It could. I don't think they will. I agree with you. I just, I always have to play devil's advocate on the show. So I just feel like it's going to also, isn't that one of your games? You probably don't want it to slip out of this year. I just don't like, at this point, it feels like you're just put it out and hope that enough people are interested and aren't paying attention that they buy it anyway, and then fix it later.
Their marketing budget is going to guarantee a lot of sales. Yeah. They're going to put a ton of money behind it. There's going to be ads during live sports, like constantly.
If there's live sports.
If there is, yeah. And I think there will at first. I think a lot of these leagues are going to start, and then the crap's going to hit the fan, and then they're going to stop. So anyway,
as Anakin said, you will try.
Yeah, I'm just happy they're even trying, to be honest with you. They probably would be smart to just shut it down for the year. But anyway, so, they do these things to increase our hype level. And this basically was Avengers E3 2020 presentation. Mm-hmm. So, Matt, did it increase your interest in the game at all?
No.
Not at all.
No. I mean, it's still like, were there any real surprises in this? No. Like it's pretty much what we thought it would be or already knew it to be. It didn't like make me want to play it. Like, it's not like I'm not going to skip it. Like, it's the big game of early September. I'm not going to ignore it, especially since Cyberpunk isn't that month anymore either.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm still going to play it. It's just, I don't know. Like I feel like I should be more excited about this than I am. Like it feels like I should have more of a reaction to it the way I reacted to Squadrons. Yeah. And because it hasn't been as long since TIE Fighter, but like it's been a long time since we had a real Avengers game, a real Marvel game that wasn't like Spider-Man or but like people keep comparing this thing to X-Men Destiny, and I have a hard time disagreeing with them.
Yeah. What about you?
If anyone remembers that game.
Yeah. And you just made your point, right?
Yeah.
What about you, Mitch? Change your opinion at all?
No, my opinion's still the same. I think it's probably not going to be a very good game, but they can surprise me. I guess the one thing that really just solidified it more than anything with this event is that this is very much Destiny, but with a Marvel cover on it. Like they have the shops, they have everything that Destiny has. And we just talked 2 weeks ago about how much we didn't want more Destiny DLC. So that kind of just puts the enthusiasm of understanding how I feel about it.
I mean, to Matt's point earlier about people meddling, I mean, that's probably the biggest issue is that Square Enix wants it to be a game as a service. And they're having to try to make all this stuff work within those confines.
Well, the only thing they've said publicly is that everything will be free except exclusive costumes. If you want there will be many costumes you can get that are free, but there will be exclusive ones that you have to purchase. But besides that, all the DLC, all the characters will be free according to Square Enix.
Like story-based DLC stuff will be free?
Correct. They say this is just the beginning. Like basically this is their anthem. And so this thing is going to continue for many years.
Well, that's probably not a great comparison.
I know. But in regards to like continued support for free, that's what they're planning on doing. Mm-hmm. And so with everything they've showed, it looks like Destiny. Just Marvel.
Did they say anything about like if you get to actually pick the character you play? Like
so there's two different ways. There's two different mission types. There's the story missions, and then there is the co-op ones. And there's two different co-op ones. I forgot the names, but there's one that's just 2-player, and there's one that's 4-player. Those are just like arena type battles that take place with against the robots. They say it does interact slightly with the story, but it's not a story mission. And then the story, those you can pick any character you want out of the crew, but you can't have the same 2 characters. So you can't have 2 Captain Americas. You can only have 1. But in the story mission, those are exclusively for that character only. So
because the cinematics are all set up around him, and the story set up around him.
So the one we saw for Thor, that was his story mission, and so that was only playable with Thor, and that is only single player.
Yep. For me personally, I would say I may be a little bit more excited for it, but at the same time, I have kind of resigned myself that it's ultimately not going to be an amazing game. When we saw it at E3 last year, I was like, okay, they got some time, and then they delayed it, and I'm like, they got some more time. So I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. But now, what we're seeing now, if they do plan on releasing it here in the first week of September, there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for them to really polish the game up. So I'm a little more interested in the game, but my long-term prospects for it have kind of soured.
I was definitely like, certainly last year I was willing to say, hey, it's, they got a year.
They had a year, and this is all we got. So, anyway,
this is what we're getting in 2 months.
September 4th. Yeah. So there you go. That's Marvel's Avengers. I don't know if we'll get a lot more on this before the game comes out, because this was kind of their big E3 presentation.
They said more announcements soon. So I think they're doing stuff in the next few months to announce different things.
I'm sure we'll get tons of trailers for characters.
Trailers and little things and interviews and stuff. But I'm sure this is the big old blowout thing. I mean, this looks like pretty much what you would have seen if you went into the booth. Yeah. If you went to the booth at E3.
Yep.
Hour-long presentation.
That's the presentation.
Someone pointed out there is a beta. If you pre-order the game, you can get onto the beta.
That's interesting.
So early whether you wasted your money or not.
So that's good, because you can play the beta and then you can ask for a refund if you don't like it.